You think modern kids are soft? You think a Viking child would laugh at today's pampered teenagers? Wrong. Take a 10-year-old Viking boy, drop him into your life, your school, your job, your daily routine. He'd collapse within a week, not because he's weak, but because every single thing his body and mind were built for would work against him in the modern world. Tonight we're flipping the script. Because Vikings weren't tougher than us in every way. They were specialized, adapted, optimized for one brutal environment, and that specialization would destroy them in hours. The body that can't sit still. Let's start with something simple. Put a Viking child in a modern classroom. Tell him to sit still for 6 hours. He can't do it. Physically cannot. Here's why. Viking children were in constant motion from the moment they could walk. Historical sources describe how children began participating in household tasks as early as age 3 or 4. Not play tasks, real work. Gathering eggs, feeding chickens, carrying firewood. By age 7, boys were helping with agricultural labor, tending livestock, and learning to hunt. Girls were cooking, weaving, managing households. Their bodies developed around movement, constant, purposeful physical movement. A 7-year-old Viking boy could row a boat, not a toy boat, a real boat that required actual strength and coordination. He could chop wood for hours, not because he was trying to build character, because if he didn't, his family froze. Archaeological evidence shows Viking children swimming, wrestling, running races, engaging in mock battles. But these weren't organized sports with referees and participation trophies. They were survival training disguised as play. When you spend every waking hour moving, lifting, climbing, working, your nervous system develops differently. Your body expects activity, craves it, becomes uncomfortable without it. Now lock that child in a desk. Tell him to focus on abstract concepts, reading, math, history. His leg bounces, his hands fidget. He can't concentrate. In modern terms, he'd be diagnosed with ADHD within a month. Put on medication to calm down a body that was built to never stop moving. But it's not a disorder, it's adaptation. His ancestors who sat still got eaten by wolves or froze to death. The ones who kept moving, who stayed alert, who couldn't settle, they survived. For 1,000 years, that trait was selected for, reinforced, bred into the population, and now we're asking that child to betray every instinct his DNA carries. The mind that can't handle abstraction. But the physical stuff, that's just the beginning. The real problem is how Viking children learned. Education in Viking society was entirely practical and hands-on. There were no formal schools, no classrooms, no textbooks. Boys learned by watching their fathers and doing the work alongside them. Farming, fishing, boat building, weapon handling. Girls learned from their mothers, cooking, weaving, dyeing fabric, making cheese, brewing ale. Everything was concrete, tangible, immediate. You didn't learn about farming, you farmed. You didn't study combat theory. You wrestled and fought with wooden weapons until you got it right. Historical sources describe how a 7-year-old boy named Olaf Thordarson built a miniature farmhouse. Not drew one, not designed one on paper, built an actual functioning structure. At 7 years old. Because Viking education was about doing, not thinking about doing. Now hand that child an algebra textbook. Tell him to solve for x. Show your work. Demonstrate understanding of abstract mathematical concepts that have zero connection to anything in his physical world. He'd stare at you like you were speaking a foreign language. Because in his mind, learning means seeing a result, holding it, using it. If you can't touch it, hunt it, build it, or eat it, what's the point? Modern education is built on abstraction, on symbols representing ideas, on hypothetical scenarios and theoretical frameworks. Viking children learned through observation and imitation according to multiple historical sources. They watched, they copied, they practiced until muscle memory took over. There was no why phase, no questioning the logic, no critical thinking about alternative methods. You did it the way your father did it, the way his father did it, because that method kept people alive. Deviation meant failure. Failure meant death. So when we ask a Viking child to think creatively, to question authority, to explore multiple solutions to a problem, we're asking him to violate every survival instinct he has. The social skills disaster. Now let's talk about something modern life demands constantly: dealing with strangers. Viking children grew up in tight-knit communities of maybe 30 to 50 people. Everyone knew everyone. Your entire social world was your extended family and maybe a few neighbors. Historical evidence shows that fostering was common, where boys would live with another family to forge bonds. But even then, you knew exactly who these people were, their reputation, their family history, their honor. There were no strangers, and more importantly, there was no ambiguity. Social rules were rigid and clear. You knew your place, you knew what was expected, you knew the consequences of stepping out of line. A child who damaged family honor faced immediate, often violent correction. Not because parents were cruel, but because damaged honor could get the entire family killed in a blood feud. Sources confirm that children were expected to uphold family honor and could get involved in blood feuds at shockingly young ages. So Viking children learned to read social situations with laser precision. Who has power? Who's an ally? Who's a threat? Who can be trusted? But that's it. That's the entire social skill set. Now drop that child into a modern middle school, hundreds of kids he's never met. No family connections, no shared history, no clear hierarchy, just chaos. He has to navigate unspoken social rules that change depending on context. What's acceptable in math class isn't acceptable at lunch. What works with one friend group fails with another. He has to understand sarcasm, irony, indirect communication. I'm fine, meaning I'm definitely not fine. None of this existed in Viking society. Communication was direct. If you had a problem with someone, you told them, or you killed them. Those were basically the options. The concept of playing it cool or reading between the lines would be completely foreign. And don't even get started on online social dynamics. A Viking child wouldn't understand why anyone would care what strangers think about them, why you'd seek approval from people you've never met, why virtual reputation matters. His entire value system is built on physical presence, real relationships, and tangible honor. Likes, followers, comments, meaningless. The psychological breaking point. But here's where it gets really dark. The thing that would truly destroy a Viking child in modern life isn't the sitting or the abstract learning or the social complexity. It's the lack of purpose. Viking children knew exactly why they existed. Their role was crystal clear from age 3. Boys existed to eventually take over the farm, defend the family, and continue the lineage. Girls existed to manage households, produce children, and maintain the domestic economy. Was it limiting? By modern standards, absolutely. But it was certain, concrete, meaningful. Every task a child performed had immediate, visible impact. You gathered eggs, your family ate, you chopped wood, everyone stayed warm, you learned to fight, you protected your kin. Cause and effect, action and result, purpose and survival. Now put that child in modern suburbia. Tell him to study hard, so maybe in 15 years he can get a job that might provide financial security. That sentence would break his brain. 15 years, maybe, might. He needs to know what he's doing matters today, right now, this moment. Historical sources emphasize that the goal of childhood wasn't just to keep children busy, but to integrate them as functional members of society as soon as possible. Because life expectancy was around 40 to 45 years. You didn't have time for a prolonged childhood. Boys were legally considered adults at 16, girls when they married, often in their mid-teens. That's it, 16 years to learn everything you need to survive and contribute. Modern kids don't feel like adults until their mid-20s, some not until their 30s. A Viking child would see that as catastrophic failure, as wasting the most vital years of life on meaningless preparation for a future that might never come. The adaptation that became a weakness. So what does all this mean? It means Viking children were the product of brutal natural selection. For centuries, the children who thrived were the ones who could endure physical hardship without complaint, who could focus on immediate, practical tasks, who could read social hierarchies instantly, who could find purpose in survival itself. The children who wanted comfort, who questioned too much, Who couldn't sit still through discomfort or pain? Who needed time to find themselves? They died. Nature filtered them out, ruthlessly, efficiently. What remained was a population of children optimized for one specific environment. Cold, harsh, physically demanding, socially rigid, purpose-driven. They were incredible at that. A 10-year-old Viking could do things that would leave modern adults helpless. Building shelters, starting fires in wet conditions, navigating by stars, surviving on minimal food, fighting with real weapons. Historical records mention children participating in all aspects of Viking life, from boating and swimming to wrestling and combat training. They were competent in ways we can barely imagine, but that competence came at a cost. Total inflexibility. You can't optimize for everything. Evolution doesn't work that way. When you spend 1,000 years selecting for children who thrive in harsh physical environments with clear social rules and immediate purpose, you lose the children who'd thrive in soft environments with ambiguous rules and delayed gratification. We did the opposite. We selected for abstract thinking, social flexibility, tolerance for boredom, and the ability to work toward distant goals. Our children would die in Viking Scandinavia. Their children would collapse in our schools. Specialization is a trap. A Viking child wouldn't survive your life, not because Vikings were weak, they weren't, but because they were specialized to the point of fragility. Every advantage they had in their world became a crippling disadvantage in ours. Their bodies, built for constant movement, can't handle stillness. Their minds, trained for concrete tasks, can't process abstraction. Their social skills, honed for small communities, can't navigate mass society. Their psychology, anchored in immediate purpose, can't tolerate delayed gratification. This isn't weakness, it's the cost of adaptation. And here's what should terrify you. We're doing the same thing. We're raising children optimized for modern life, for sitting still, for abstract thinking, for digital communication, for working toward goals years in the future. We think we're making them stronger, more capable, better prepared, but we're making them specialists. And specialists are fragile. The moment the environment changes, the moment modern infrastructure collapses, the moment they need to do something physical, immediate, and concrete to survive, they'll be as helpless as that Viking child in a classroom. Maybe the lesson isn't that Viking children were tougher. Maybe it's that specialization, any specialization, is a gamble. You win big in your environment, and you lose catastrophically everywhere else. If this changed how you think about toughness and adaptation, hit subscribe. Share this with someone who romanticizes the past or worries about soft modern kids. Drop a comment. Which environment would you rather be specialized for? Viking Scandinavia or modern society? I'll see you in the next one.